The eviction notice was a crisp, white wound on her battered kitchen table. Alara stared at the bold, red letters as if her gaze alone could incinerate them. 3 days. That was all she had. 3 days to find the money for rent or pack up her life and her son's life into cardboard boxes with no destination in sight. Her laptop screen glowed with the dregs of her bank account, $7.42. A bitter laugh escaped her lips, sharp and humorless. It was not even enough for a new can of formula. A soft whimper drifted from the playpen in the corner of the small living room. Leo, her beautiful, 10-month-old son, shifted in his sleep, his face flushed. His fever had spiked again that morning. The bottle of children's medicine on the counter was nearly empty, the last precious drops rationed out like liquid gold. Every cough from her son was a physical blow, a reminder of her failure. She had a degree in graphic design, a portfolio that had once won awards, but the freelance market was a ghost town, and full-time jobs required childcare she could not possibly afford. Desperation was a cold, heavy blanket. It smothered pride. It suffocated hope. Today was her last chance, a remote interview for a data entry position she found on a third-rate job board. The pay was abysmal, the work mindless, but it was something. It was a lifeline. She checked the time. 10 minutes. She smoothed down her one good blouse, pulling it taut over her worn jeans, hoping the webcam would only capture her from the chest up. She ran a hand through her hair, trying to tame the frizz born of stress and sleepless nights. "Okay, Leo," she whispered, her voice trembling slightly as she lifted her warm, sleepy son from his pen. "Mommy just needs you to be a quiet little angel for 30 minutes. Can you do that for me? Just 30 minutes." Leo blinked up at her with wide, trusting eyes, his small hand curling around her finger. The weight of that trust felt immense, a mountain she had to move with her bare hands. She settled him into his high chair with a soft toy, praying it would be enough of a distraction. She clicked the link in the email, the one that promised a potential escape from this nightmare. The screen went black for a second, then flickered to life. Her breath caught in her throat. This was not the harried, middle-aged human resources manager she had expected. The screen was filled with a grid of faces, at least a dozen of them, all in sharp suits, their expressions severe. They sat around a long, polished mahogany table in a conference room that looked larger than her entire apartment. In the center of the screen, in the main speaker window, was a man whose face was etched with a sharp, intimidating intelligence. His dark hair was impeccably styled, his jaw was firm, and his eyes, a startlingly clear shade of gray, seemed to pierce right through the screen. A small nameplate beneath his image read Damian Sterling, CEO. Panic seized her. This was Sterling Industries, a global tech giant. She had not applied for a job here. This was a boardroom, a high-level, confidential meeting. Her heart hammered against her ribs as a wave of mortification washed over her. She was a single mother in a worn-out blouse, with a sick baby just out of frame, crashing a multi-billion-dollar corporation's executive meeting. "My apologies," she stammered, her voice a reedy whisper. Her fingers fumbled for the mouse, desperate to find the leave meeting button. I think I have the wrong link. I am so sorry to interrupt." The other faces on the screen shifted, some with annoyance, others with cold curiosity. But Damian Sterling did not look annoyed. His intense gaze softened almost imperceptibly. He raised a hand, a silent command that froze her frantic movements. "Don't leave," he said. His voice was calm, a deep baritone that filled the sudden silence of the virtual room. He smiled, a small, almost imperceptible curving of his lips that did not quite reach his eyes. "I've been waiting." The words made no sense. Alara stared, bewildered, her finger hovering over the button that would grant her escape. The other board members exchanged confused glances. An older man with silver hair cleared his throat. "Mr. Sterling, we were just discussing the acquisition of—" "The discussion is over for today," Damian cut in smoothly, his eyes never leaving Alara's. He addressed the group without looking at them. "We will reconvene tomorrow. Thank you, everyone." One by one, the other video squares blinked out, leaving her alone in the virtual room with the most powerful man she had ever seen. The silence that descended was deafening. She felt exposed, a specimen under a microscope. Mr. Sterling, I assure you this was a mistake," she began, her voice shaking. "My name is Alara Vance. I was supposed to be in an interview for a data entry position with a company called Digital Scribes. I know who you are, Alara, he said, and the way he spoke her name sent a strange shiver down her spine. He gestured to a screen she could not see. My assistant is pulling up your file now. You clicked a corrupted link. It seems their scheduling software has a security flaw that rerouted you into our top-level executive channel. I will have my tech team look into it. He paused, his gaze unwavering. But I believe some mistakes are more like opportunities. She did not know what to say. He looked at her, truly looked at her, and she felt a bizarre sense of calm emanating from him. Your resume, he continued, his eyes flicking to the side for a moment. It says you have a background in graphic design. There is a link to your portfolio. Yes, but I have not updated it in a while. The work I was doing. It is excellent, he stated, not as a compliment, but as a fact. Clean, intuitive, emotionally resonant. Sterling Industries is launching a new philanthropic division. The Sterling Hope Foundation, it needs a brand identity. A logo, a design language. I want you to do it. Alara's mind reeled. It felt like a dream, a hallucination brought on by stress and hunger. Mr. Sterling, that's a job for an entire agency, not one freelance designer working from her kitchen table. I disagree, he said simply. I want a singular vision. Yours, he leaned forward slightly. I will pay you a $50,000 retainer, effective immediately. Half up front. Is that acceptable? $50,000. The number echoed in the silent apartment. It was more money than she had seen in 5 years combined. It was rent for years. It was medicine and food and clothes for Leo. It was safety. It was too much. It was impossible. The hook was too shiny, the bait too rich. People like Damian Sterling did not just hand out fortunes to strangers who stumbled into their meetings. Why? The word slipped out, raw and suspicious. Why me? You could have the best designers in the world with a single phone call. His expression remained placid, a carefully constructed mask. Let's just say I have a good instinct for talent, Alara. And I was unimpressed with the corporate, soulless pitches my marketing department has been showing me for weeks. Your work has heart. The foundation needs heart. He typed something on his keyboard. My assistant will be sending over a contract and a link for a direct wire transfer. I will need the preliminary concepts by the end of the week. It was a dismissal. Just like that. He had changed her life and was moving on. Her pride warred with her desperation. Pride was a luxury she could not afford when her son was sick. Okay, she whispered, the word tasting foreign. Yes, thank you. I look forward to seeing what you create, he said, and with a final, unreadable look, his screen went black. She sat there, staring at her own reflection in the dark monitor. In the background, Leo let out a small cry. Reality came rushing back in. It was not real. It could not be. But then her phone pinged with an email notification. Subject, Sterling Hope Foundation, design contract and retainer. A moment later, another ping. A notification from her banking app. Deposit received, $25,000,000. Alara stared at the numbers, her vision blurring with tears. The relief was so immense it was painful, a physical weight lifting from her chest. But beneath it, a seed of suspicion had already taken root. It was too easy, too fast, too perfect. A man like that did not operate on whims. There was a reason, a piece of the puzzle she was missing, and the thought of what it might be filled her with a profound and unsettling dread. The first thing she did was pay her rent online, the full amount plus a month in advance. The confirmation email felt like a pardon. The second was to schedule a video consultation with a top pediatrician, a service she could never have dreamed of affording an hour ago. The doctor was kind and reassuring, diagnosing Leo with a common respiratory virus and prescribing an antibiotic and a better fever reducer. The prescription was delivered by a courier service less than an hour later. Holding the bag of medicine felt like holding a treasure. For 2 days, Alara worked with a feverish intensity she had not felt in years. The creative energy, so long suppressed by anxiety and exhaustion, flowed out of her. She poured all of her hope, her relief, and her lingering fear into the designs. She created a logo that was simple but powerful. 2 hands, one large and one small, cupped together to form the image of a rising sun. It represented protection, hope, and a new beginning. She built an entire brand guide around it, choosing colors that were warm and uplifting, fonts that were accessible and clear. She sent the preliminary designs to Damien's assistant late on the second night. The response came not from the assistant, but from Damien himself, less than 5 minutes later. The email contained only 3 words. It is perfect. The next morning, another email arrived. It was a formal offer of employment, not for a freelance project, but for a full-time position as creative director of the Sterling Hope Foundation. The salary listed was staggering. It included full medical benefits, a retirement plan, and a corporate apartment near the Sterling Industries headquarters downtown if she wanted it. The suspicion that had been simmering in her gut boiled over. This was no longer about a lucky break or a CEO's whim. This was a deliberate, calculated campaign to enmesh her in his world. He was not just offering her a job. He was trying to absorb her entire life. She thought back to the initial call, the odd way he had looked at her, the strange phrase, "I've been waiting." Her hands trembled as she found his direct contact information in the email signature. She had to know. She could not accept this, could not move her son into a new life built on a foundation of lies or hidden motives. She pressed the call button before she could lose her nerve. He answered on the first ring. "Alara, I got your offer," she said, her voice tight. "It's too much." "I do not think so," he replied, his tone even. "Your work is worth it. You are worth it." "Stop," she said, her voice cracking. "Stop talking about my work. This is not about my work, and we both know it. Why are you doing this? Who are you? You have to tell me the truth. I can't live like this, waiting for the other shoe to drop. I can't put my son in a situation I don't understand." There was a long silence on the other end of the line. When he finally spoke, his voice was different. The commanding CEO was gone, replaced by something more fragile, more human. "You are right," he said softly. "This is complicated. Can we meet? In person? There is a small park near my office. It is public. Safe. Please. I will explain everything." She agreed, her heart pounding with a mixture of fear and a desperate need for answers. From his corner office on the 80th floor, Damien Sterling watched the city lights flicker to life. He ended the call with Alara and felt a familiar ache in his chest. For 3 years, he had been a ghost haunting his own life, a machine that did nothing but acquire companies and increase shareholder value. His world had been silent, gray, and empty since the day he had lost everything that mattered. His wife, Anna, and their son, Leo, had been killed in a car accident. His Leo would have been almost a year old now. The pain of it was a constant, low hum beneath the surface of his life. He buried himself in work, building an empire on a foundation of grief. He kept everyone at a distance, his heart encased in ice. Then Alara Vance had appeared on his screen. For a fleeting second before she had settled in for her interview, her webcam had caught her lifting her son from his playpen. A little boy with a tuft of brown hair, so much like his own Leo. He saw the exhaustion in her eyes, the fierce, protective love, the quiet desperation. It was the same desperation he and Anna had felt when they were young, struggling students with a baby on the way. In that moment, the ice around his heart had cracked. It was not a logical decision. It was an instinct, a primal pull to help, to protect, to fix something in a world he could no longer fix for himself. When she tried to leave the meeting, his words had come out on their own. "Don't leave. I've been waiting." He had not been waiting for her, not specifically. He had been waiting for a sign, for a reason to feel something again, a purpose beyond the hollow pursuit of wealth. Helping her son, felt like the first meaningful thing he had done in 3 years. It felt like honoring the memory of his own family. But he knew, as he prepared to meet her, that explaining this would be the hardest thing he had ever done. The park was a small oasis of green amidst the steel and glass canyons of the financial district. Alara sat on a bench, clutching her coat tightly around her. She saw him approaching, dressed not in a suit, but in simple jeans and a dark sweater. He looked younger, less intimidating, but the sadness in his eyes was more profound without the armor of his corporate persona. He sat on the other end of the bench, leaving a respectful distance between them. "Thank you for coming," he said. "I need to understand," she replied simply. He took a deep breath and began to speak. He told her about Anna, about their life together, about their dreams. And then he told her about his Leo. He spoke of his son's laugh, the way he would grab his finger, the unbearable emptiness of his nursery, which he had never had the heart to dismantle. "When you appeared on my screen," he said, his voice thick with emotion, "and I saw your son in the background for a second, it felt like the universe was giving me a sign. I saw your struggle. I recognized it. And I had the power to do something about it. It was selfish, in a way. Helping you made me feel less broken. It was the first time I had felt anything other than grief in years." He looked at her, his gray eyes shimmering with unshed tears. "The job offer is real. Your talent is real. You've earned every bit of it. But my initial motivation, it came from a place of deep personal pain. I am sorry if I frightened you or made you feel like a pawn in some game. That was never my intention." Alara listened, her own tears beginning to fall. Her suspicion, her fear, it all dissolved, replaced by a wave of empathy so powerful it took her breath away. This was not a predator or a manipulator. This was a man drowning in sorrow, who had reached for a lifeline. She saw the raw, unguarded pain in his face, and her heart broke for him. "I am so sorry for your loss," she whispered, the words feeling horribly inadequate. "Your son is beautiful," he said, a sad smile touching his lips. "What is his name?" She hesitated for only a second. "Leo." Damien closed his eyes, a single tear tracing a path down his cheek. In that shared moment of vulnerability, the strange, transactional relationship between them shattered, and something new, something real and fragile, began to grow in its place. Alara accepted the job. She and Leo moved into the beautiful, sunlit apartment provided by the company. For the first time, she felt secure. Her work at the foundation gave her a sense of purpose she had not realized she was missing. She was not just designing logos. She was helping to build something that would change lives. Her relationship with Damien evolved slowly, cautiously. It was built on a foundation of shared understanding and mutual respect. He never overstepped. He became a frequent visitor, coming not as the CEO, but as a friend. He would sit on the floor and play with Leo, a genuine, joyful light returning to his eyes whenever he was around the child. Alara found herself falling not for the billionaire, but for the man who read picture books with a silly voice and who could make her son giggle uncontrollably. But their fragile peace was not destined to last. Within the walls of Sterling Industries, Damien's sudden focus on the foundation and his personal interest in its new creative director had not gone unnoticed. Marcus Thorne, a senior board member whose ambition was matched only by his ruthlessness, saw Damien's emotional investment as a critical weakness. Marcus had been positioning himself for years to challenge Damien for control of the company, and he saw Alara as the perfect lever. The attack was swift and brutal. An anonymous tip was leaked to a financial news blog, complete with doctored emails and forged design files. The story painted Alara as a corporate spy, a financially desperate single mother who had seduced the grieving CEO and was selling the foundation's branding concepts to a rival tech firm. Marcus used her past financial hardship as a motive, making it all seem plausible. The board was in an uproar. An emergency meeting was called. Damien's leadership was openly questioned. He was accused of being compromised, of putting the company at risk for a woman who was clearly taking advantage of him. Damien faced them down in the boardroom, his expression like stone. "She is innocent," he said, his voice ringing with absolute conviction. "This is a lie, and I will prove it." He went straight to Alara's apartment. He found her staring at the news article on her laptop, her face pale with shock and horror. "I did not do this," she whispered, looking up at him, her eyes wide with fear. "Damien, you have to believe me." "I know," he said, kneeling in front of her and taking her hands in his. "I never doubted you for a second. But this is an attack on both of us. Marcus Thorne is behind this. He wants to force me out, and he is using you to do it." A fire ignited in Alara's chest, burning away the fear. She would not let this man, this stranger, destroy everything she had built. She would not let him tarnish Damien's name or threaten her son's future. "He used my designs," she said, her mind racing. "The leaked files, let me see them. The ones they are claiming I sent to the competitor." Damien brought them up on his tablet. Alara leaned in, her designer's eye scanning every pixel, every line of code. For hours, they worked together, Damien's strategic mind and her creative expertise combining into a formidable force. And then she found it. "There," she said, pointing to the screen. the font used in the logo on the forged document. The kerning is off by half a pixel. It is a sloppy copy. But more than that, she quickly navigated to the file's metadata. Look at the creation date. This file was created yesterday afternoon. I submitted my final version to you 3 weeks ago. And the IP address it was created on, it is internal. It came from inside the Sterling Industries network. It was the smoking gun. Marcus had not been careful enough. In his haste to frame her, he had made a critical technical error. Damien called another emergency board meeting for the following morning. Alara will be joining us, he informed his stunned executive assistant. The atmosphere in the boardroom was electric with tension. Marcus Thorne sat opposite Damien, his expression a mask of smug concern. Damien, we are all worried about you, Marcus began, his voice dripping with false sympathy. But the evidence is a forgery, Damien cut in, his voice cold as ice. He motioned to the main screen, where Alara's face appeared, clear and composed. Mr. Thorne, Alara said, her voice steady and professional. You seem to have a keen interest in graphic design. Perhaps you can explain a few things for the board. Calmly, methodically, she walked them through the evidence. She showed them the subtle imperfections in the copied logo, the incorrect kerning, the metadata that proved the file was a recent creation from within their own servers. With every word, the color drained from Marcus's face. She presented her case not as a victim, but as an expert, her competence and integrity shining through. The final piece of evidence, Damien said, taking over, is the IP address, which my security team has just traced directly to the computer in your office, Marcus. The silence was absolute. Marcus stared, cornered and exposed. He erupted, his composure shattering into a million pieces. You think you can get away with this? I will ruin you. Both of you. Security, Damien said calmly into his desk phone. Please escort Mr. Thorne from the building. His access has been revoked. And have our legal team meet him downstairs. As the board members sat in stunned silence, processing the swift and total victory, Damien terminated the call for everyone except Alara. They were alone again, in the same virtual space where they had first met. The adrenaline of the confrontation faded, leaving behind something else, something powerful and undeniable. You were amazing, he said, his voice filled with awe and pride. We were amazing, she corrected him softly. We did it together. He looked at her, his carefully constructed walls completely gone. All she could see was the man, vulnerable and open. Alara, he began, his voice low. When I first met you, I told myself I was just helping, that it was about honoring my son's memory. But it became about you so quickly, about your strength, your talent, your heart. You and Leo. You did not just bring purpose back into my life. You brought life back into my life. You made me whole again. I love you. Tears streamed down Alara's face, but this time, they were tears of joy. I love you too, Damien. A year later, the Sterling Hope Foundation Gala was in full swing. The ballroom glittered, a testament to the success of the organization that had become a leader in child welfare programs across the country. Alara moved through the crowd with an easy confidence, no longer the desperate woman from the tiny apartment, but the accomplished head of creative development, respected and admired by her colleagues. She found Damien on a private balcony overlooking the city skyline. He turned and smiled, wrapping his arm around her waist and pulling her close. The diamond on her left hand caught the light, a brilliant star against the night. He is having the time of his life with the nanny, she said, leaning her head against his shoulder. She said he ate 3 entire mini cupcakes. Damien laughed, a rich, happy sound that she loved more than anything. Just like his mother. They stood in comfortable silence, watching the endless stream of headlights below. It was a world away from the eviction notices and the empty medicine bottles. Do you ever think about it? She asked softly. That day? The wrong link. I think about it every day, he answered, his voice serious. He turned to face her, cupping her cheek in his hand. I think about how one tiny, impossible mistake brought me everything I had lost and everything I never knew I was looking for. It was not the wrong link, Alara. It was the only one that mattered. She looked up at him, her heart overflowing with a love and gratitude so immense it felt as infinite as the city lights stretching out before them. She had stumbled into a meeting looking for a lifeline and had found a life, a home, a family. and she knew, with an unshakable certainty, that their story was just beginning.